Victoria Hayes stood before the mirror in the elegant bridal suite of the Grand Cathedral, her reflection showing a woman who seemed to have everything. The morning light filtered through tall windows, casting a golden glow across her silk wedding gown. The dress was a masterpiece of design, with delicate embroidery that traced patterns like vines up the bodice, flowing into a train that swept behind her like a river of moonlight. Her dark hair was arranged in soft pearls, pinned with tiny crystals that caught the light with every movement. A sister's concern. Jade Chen, her closest friend since college, adjusted the veil with careful fingers. Jade wore a soft lavender bridesmaid's dress that complemented her petite frame and brought out the warmth in her brown eyes. She had flown in from Singapore just for this day, leaving behind her own busy life as an architect to stand beside Victoria. "You look like something out of a dream," Jade said softly, though her smile did not quite reach her eyes. She had always been honest with Victoria, sometimes painfully so, and right now there was something heavy in the air between them that neither wanted to acknowledge. Victoria touched the diamond necklace at her throat, a gift from Trevor Montgomery, the man she would marry in less than an hour. It was worth more than her car, more than anything she had ever owned. Trevor had a way of overwhelming her with grand gestures, sweeping her into a life of luxury she had never imagined for herself. He was successful, confident, and had pursued her with an intensity that had been flattering at first, then all-consuming. Doubts in paradise. "Are you happy?" Jade asked suddenly, her voice quiet but penetrating. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Victoria turned from the mirror, confusion flickering across her face. "Of course I am. This is my wedding day. Everything is perfect." "Perfect?" Jade repeated, as if testing the word. "Victoria, can I ask you something? When was the last time you made a decision about your own life, about this wedding, about anything?" The question struck deeper than Victoria wanted to admit. She thought about the past 6 months of wedding planning. Trevor had opinions about everything. The venue had been his choice. The guest list had been mostly his business associates and society contacts. Even the dress, beautiful as it was, had been selected from a designer Trevor insisted upon. She had gone along with it all, telling herself that he had better taste, more experience with these high society affairs. A father's wisdom. Before Victoria could respond, there was a knock at the door. Robert Hayes entered, distinguished in his tailored suit. Her father had always been a man of few words, but his presence filled the room with quiet strength. He had raised Victoria alone after her mother's death when Victoria was only 12, working double shifts as a high school teacher to give her every opportunity. "My darling girl," he said, his voice thick with emotion. He crossed to her and took both his hands in his. "You look so much like your mother did on our wedding day." Victoria felt tears threatening, but blinked them back. "Dad, don't make me cry. It took Jade an hour to do my makeup." Robert's expression grew serious. "Victoria, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Do you love Trevor Montgomery, or do you love the life he can give you?" The question felt like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples through everything Victoria thought she knew. "Dad, that's not fair." "Life isn't fair, sweetheart, but marriage should be more than money and status." He paused, seeming to struggle with his next words. "I've been doing some thinking. Trevor is polite, successful, generous with his money, but in the year you've been engaged, he has never once asked you about your dreams. He has never asked what you want. He talks and you listen. He decides and you agree. That's not partnership. That's not love." The unexpected visitor. The cathedral hallway was decorated with thousands of white roses and flickering candles, creating an atmosphere of romance and celebration. But as Victoria rounded the corner, she saw Christopher standing near the entrance, and the expression on his face made her blood run cold. He looked exactly as she remembered, tall and lean with dark hair that fell slightly over his forehead. His gray suit was perfectly tailored, but there was nothing polished about the raw emotion in his gray storm eyes.
In his hands, he held a manila envelope that seemed to weigh heavy with significance. "Victoria, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to do this today, but I couldn't let you walk down that aisle without knowing the truth. I couldn't let you marry Trevor Montgomery without giving you the choice I should have given you 2 years ago." Victoria felt the world tilting beneath her feet. What truth? What choice? Christopher stepped forward, holding out the envelope. "Trevor Montgomery is not who you think he is, and the life you're about to enter is built on lies."
Victoria stared at the manila envelope in Christopher's hands as if it were a serpent ready to strike. Behind her, she could hear footsteps. Jade and her father had followed, and now they stood in the hallway, witnesses to whatever was about to unfold. "Christopher, this is inappropriate," Victoria said, though her voice lacked conviction. "Whatever you have to say about Trevor, whatever business dispute you two have, this is not the time or place." "This isn't about business," Christopher said urgently. His gray eyes held hers with an intensity that made her feel exposed, vulnerable. "This is about you, about your safety, about the fact that Trevor Montgomery has been lying to you since the day you met him." Victoria's hands trembled as she reached for the envelope. The moment her fingers touched it, she knew there was no going back. Whatever was inside would change everything. She broke the seal and pulled out a thick stack of documents and photographs. The hidden truth. The first document was a marriage certificate. Victoria's eyes scanned the page, confusion clouding her mind. Trevor Montgomery, married to Stephanie Caldwell, dated 3 years ago. Her hands shook as she flipped to the next page. Photographs showed Trevor with a beautiful blonde woman and 2 small children, a boy and a girl, at what looked like a family vacation. The images were recent, dated within the last 6 months. "He's married," Victoria whispered, the words feeling foreign in her mouth. "He has children." "Had," Christopher corrected gently. "Stephanie filed for divorce 8 months ago when she discovered Trevor had been embezzling from his own company to fund his gambling addiction. The divorce isn't finalized yet. Legally, he's still married. Your wedding today would be completely invalid." Victoria felt the room spinning. She clutched the wall for support, the heavy wedding dress suddenly suffocating. Jade was beside her instantly, wrapping an arm around her waist. "There's more," Christopher continued, his voice heavy with regret. "The real estate company Trevor runs is on the verge of bankruptcy. He's been using investor money to maintain his lifestyle while the actual business crumbles. He's facing federal charges for fraud. The authorities plan to arrest him next week." The calculated courtship. Robert took the documents from Victoria's numb fingers, flipping through them with growing anger. "This can't be real. Why would he propose to my daughter if he was facing all this?" Christopher pulled out another set of papers. "Because Victoria has something Trevor desperately needs, her trust fund." Victoria looked up sharply. "My trust fund? The one my mother left me? That's in a protected account. I can't access it until I'm married or turn 35. "Exactly. Your mother's trust is worth $12 million. Once you marry, you gain full access. Trevor planned to have you sign papers during your honeymoon, transferring the money to joint accounts that he controls. By the time you realized what happened, he would have drained every penny and disappeared." The cruelty of it stole Victoria's breath. Every moment of their relationship suddenly took on a sinister cast. The way Trevor had pursued her so aggressively, the rushed engagement, his insistence on a quick wedding, his anger whenever she suggested waiting. It had never been about love. She had been a mark, a solution to his financial problems. Christopher's confession. "How long have you known?" Victoria asked Christopher, her voice barely above a whisper. Christopher's jaw tightened. "I suspected something was wrong 2 years ago when Trevor suddenly started pursuing you right after I did. Trevor has always been competitive with me, always trying to take what I have or want. But this seemed different, more calculated. I hired a private investigator 6 months ago. It took this long to gather all the evidence." "6 months?" Victoria repeated, anger beginning to cut through her shock. "You've known for 6 months that I was about to marry a con artist, and you're only telling me now, on my wedding day?" "I tried,"
Christopher said desperately. "I called you 4 months ago. You blocked my number. I sent letters. Trevor intercepted them. I showed up at your office. Security escorted me out before I could reach you. Trevor has been controlling every aspect of your life, isolating you from anyone who might see through his facade." Victoria realized with horror that he was right. Over the past year, she had drifted away from friends. Her father's visits had become less frequent because Trevor always had other plans scheduled. She had quit her job at the financial firm to help with wedding planning, leaving her financially dependent on Trevor. She had been systematically cut off from everyone who cared about her. The man behind the mask. Jade spoke up, her voice sharp with anger. "I tried to tell you something was off about Trevor. Remember when I came to visit 3 months ago? He made sure we were never alone. He scheduled activities every moment I was here. He wouldn't let us have a single private conversation." Victoria remembered. She had thought Trevor was being thoughtful, planning fun activities for her and her friend. Now she saw it for what it was: control, manipulation, isolation. Robert's face had gone red with fury. Where is he? Where is Trevor Montgomery right now? Probably in the groom's suite, getting ready to play the part of the loving husband, Christopher said bitterly. He's very good at playing parts. The successful businessman, the devoted fiancé, the man who swept you off your feet with grand gestures and expensive gifts. Gifts, Victoria said suddenly. Everything was always so expensive. The jewelry, the trips, the shopping sprees. He was spending money he didn't have, money he planned to replace with my trust fund. A different kind of love. Christopher stepped closer, his voice dropping to something softer, more vulnerable. "Victoria, there's something else I need to tell you. Something I should have said 2 years ago instead of stepping aside like a coward." Victoria looked up at him, seeing past the businessman to the man underneath, the man who talked with her about poetry and philosophy, the man who listened when she spoke about her dreams of starting a non-profit to help underprivileged students, the man who made her laugh until her sides hurt over terrible jokes and shared his own fears and insecurities. "When I met you at that gala, it was the first time in my life I felt like I had met someone who saw me, not my money or my status, just me. We spent one perfect weekend together, and I fell in love with you, completely, irrevocably in love. But then Trevor stepped in with his flashy gestures and promises of excitement, and I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe you wanted that life more than you wanted the quiet, simple connection we had." Tears streamed down Victoria's face, ruining her carefully applied makeup. "You never fought for me. You just disappeared." "I know," Christopher said, his own voice breaking. "I thought I was doing the noble thing, stepping aside if you had chosen him. But I've spent 2 years regretting that decision, watching from a distance as Trevor isolated you, controlled you, dimmed the light that made you special. I couldn't let him destroy you completely. Even if you hate me for ruining your wedding, even if you never want to see me again, I had to make sure you knew the truth." The moment of truth. Victoria looked down at her wedding dress, at the diamond necklace around her throat, at the expensive shoes that pinched her feet. Everything about this day, about this life, was beautiful on the surface, but rotten underneath, just like Trevor. She thought about the woman she had been 2 years ago, confident and independent, excited about her career and her future. Then she thought about who she had become, someone who asked permission, who second-guessed her own thoughts, who had slowly been erased and replaced with Trevor's idea of the perfect wife. "I need to see him," Victoria said suddenly. "I need to hear him admit it." Robert grabbed her arm. "Victoria, you don't owe that man anything. Just walk away. Call off the wedding and walk away." But Victoria shook her head. "No, he doesn't get to make me a victim. He doesn't get to tell this story as the bride who got cold feet and ran. I'm going to face him, and I'm going to end this on my terms." She turned to Christopher. "Did you bring copies of all this evidence?" He nodded. "Multiple copies. The authorities already have their set. This envelope is yours." "Good," Victoria said, steel entering her voice. She straightened her shoulders and lifted her chin. "Then let's go crash a wedding."
Victoria walked through the cathedral with purpose, her wedding dress rustling with each determined step. Behind her, Christopher, Jade, and Robert formed a protective wall of support. The guests were beginning to fill the pews, dressed in their finest clothes, clutching programs that detailed the ceremony of the year. They had no idea they were about to witness something far more dramatic than wedding vows. The groom's suite was located in the opposite wing of the cathedral. Victoria didn't knock. She pushed open the heavy wooden door with both hands, letting it slam against the wall with a satisfying crash. Trevor Montgomery stood in front of a mirror, adjusting his bow tie. He was handsome in his tuxedo, with perfectly styled hair and a confident smile that faltered when he saw Victoria's face. Behind him, 3 of his groomsmen froze with champagne glasses halfway to their lips. "Darling," Trevor said, forcing his smile back into place, "you look stunning, but you know it's bad luck for the groom to see the bride before the ceremony." "Bad luck," Victoria repeated, her voice cold. "Is that what you call this? Bad luck?" She threw the manila envelope at him. It hit his chest and fell to the floor, spilling photographs and documents across the expensive carpet. Trevor's face went pale as he recognized what he was seeing. The mask slips. "Where did you get those?" Trevor demanded, his charm evaporating like morning mist. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Does it matter?" asked Victoria. "Are they true? Are you married? Do you have children? Is your company bankrupt? Did you plan to steal my mother's trust fund?" Trevor's eyes darted to Christopher, who stood in the doorway like an avenging angel. "Blake," he spat, "I should have known. You couldn't stand that I won. You couldn't stand that she chose me over you." "She didn't choose you," Christopher said calmly. "You manipulated her. You lied to her. You isolated her from everyone who cared about her. That's not winning. That's fraud." Trevor laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You think you're so noble, don't you? The white knight riding in to save the damsel in distress. But you're just as calculating as I am. You want her money, too. Everyone wants something." "Not everyone," Victoria said softly. She looked at Christopher, really looked at him for the first time in 2 years. She remembered their weekend together, how he had never once mentioned his wealth or tried to impress her with expensive gifts. He had taken her to a bookstore and spent hours discussing their favorite authors. He had bought her coffee from a street vendor, and they had sat on a park bench watching people pass by. He had asked her about her dreams, her fears, her hopes for the future. He had listened. "You're pathetic," Trevor said to Victoria, his true nature finally showing through. "You were so desperate for someone to take care of you, so eager to play the princess that you never questioned anything. You wanted the fairy tale and I gave it to you. If you were stupid enough to fall for it, that's on you." Robert moved forward, but Victoria held up her hand, stopping him. "No, Dad. Let me handle this." She turned back to Trevor, and when she spoke, her voice was steady and strong. "You're right about one thing. I did want the fairy tale. I wanted someone to sweep me off my feet and make me feel special. But that's where you're wrong about me being stupid. I'm smart enough to recognize that real love isn't about expensive gifts and grand gestures. Real love is about respect, partnership, honesty, things you know nothing about." The wedding that wasn't. Victoria removed the diamond necklace from her throat and set it on the dresser. "This belongs to you. Actually, it probably belongs to the jewelry store since I'm guessing you never actually paid for it." She pulled off the engagement ring, the massive diamond catching the light one last time before she dropped it into Trevor's champagne glass with a satisfying plunk. "That definitely goes back. I don't want anything from you except the truth. Did you ever feel anything real for me, or was I just a transaction?" Trevor's face twisted with something that might have been genuine emotion, though Victoria couldn't tell if it was regret or anger at being caught. "Does it matter? The wedding's off. You got what you wanted. You get to be the victim, the poor girl who was deceived by the bad man. Enjoy your moral victory." "The wedding is off," Victoria agreed, "but this isn't over. Christopher has given all the evidence of your fraud to the authorities. You'll be arrested next week. Your victims, the people whose money you stole, they'll get justice.
And your wife and children, they'll get the divorce settlement you've been hiding assets to avoid paying. Trevor's face went from pale to red. You can't do that. If you testify against me, if you provide evidence, I'll make sure everyone knows you were complicit. I'll say you knew everything. Go ahead, Victoria said calmly.